First, this is the March 25th, 2024 Virtual School Committee meeting. This is being broadcast live on DCAT. And is there anyone in the audience that is recording it separately? Okay, so with that, we will start then. Do we have any information from the school committee before we begin from the superintendent? And if anyone notices a hand and I don't, please let me know because it's hard with the viewing. So just interrupt me at any point. Okay, so Superintendent Bauer, it looks like the information is all coming from you then right now.
All right, well, excellent. I will share my slide. Excuse me. Easier said than done. Okay. Everybody see the slides? There we go. All right. Perfect. All right, so first up, we have the Accessibility Committee. And just introducing, I know Christine Farrar is here. I don't know if JD is here as well, but we have a full slate tonight. But we'd like to lead off with Ms. Farrar. If you're on the call.
I am. Thank you so much. So hi,
Welcome.
everyone. I actually, Gabe's going to get this for a second time in a week, so there will be a test later. I'm Christy Fair. I'm the chair of the Accessibility Commission. We are an appointed commission that the town manager appoints and had been in existence for a very long time. We were part of a town meeting vote back in the 1990s, but then it dissolved and we were recommissioned last year. And so we're just getting our feet and getting ourselves introduced around the community. The commission is designed to offer education, to foster inclusion, and to raise awareness about equitable access to resources in Danvers. Accessibility considers all forms of access beyond physical and mental ability, from logistical access of ramps and parking spots to other forms of identity-based access, such as obstacles in transgender healthcare and linguistic barriers. This commission aspires to foster dignity and self-determination in its pursuit of access and accommodations. And we have three main goals. First is to elevate the experiences of those with different abilities and access needs. The second is to advocate for continued implementation of the ADA. And then third is to advise on issues related to access needs of the Danvers community. So right now, what we're doing, like I said, is we're going around and making sure that other organizations and departments in Danvers knows about us. So that's why I'm here. And we want you to know that we exist to support you and your work. So the type of things that we've done so far, we helped facilitate an update of a handicap spot in the parking lot on Hobart Street. We've supported a planning department grant application by helping with the writing and the goals of that. And then we've also done an informal accessibility audit of the library. In the future, we are hoping to be trained as community accessibility monitors. So if you have a program or a space that you would like support in determining the accessibility of that resource, you can reach out to us and we would have somebody who could do it for you. And then we also have a couple of public forums that are coming up. And these forums are going to be listening sessions for people of Danvers, both appointed and elected officials, but also town employees. And so, Dan, this is a little bit different than we originally had. We had some logistic issues with locations, and also there are some events coming up with the election, so we lost our space in town hall for a little bit. But so on April 25th, we are going to be having a public forum about disability experience in the schools. And so we're going to have some students who are going to share their experience in the schools and have it open it up to the public to also share their experiences if they want to. And we would formally like to invite all of you to participate. It is looking like it probably will be online, and so it will be on our calendar, and I will send an email to the superintendent's office so that you all get that information as soon as that is solidified. And then we also are having one on May 23rd. That one is going to be in person in the Toomey Room in Town Hall, and it's going to be more generally the disability experience in the community of Danvers. And so we'll have people with a variety of different disability experiences talking about what it's like to live in Danvers and what type of supports they need from the community. So my kind of call to action is please put us to work If you want to reach out to us and have us review things, everybody on the commission has either a disability or direct connection to the disability experience. And if we don't have the answers, we can find it for you. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Christy. Does anyone have any questions first?
No questions, Madam Chair, but certainly, Christy, thank you for the work that you and your team are doing. I think it's going to make a big difference for Danvers, and it's nice to see that this committee sort of reactivated under your leadership. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. We're really excited. And we have a great team. We have a body of 7. It's 5 voting members and 2 alternates. And we're not a programmatic body in general. So if you do have programs and you need extra support, always feel free to reach out to us because we're willing and ready to do the work.
Yeah, I echo what Eric said, and it looks like Christy too that there's a ton of information on the Danvers web,
Yes.
Danvers, yeah, .org. So with like feedback forms, incident
Yes.
reports, how to get involved. So I think that's awesome. I know you said that it was just recently recommissioned. I'm glad it is because Superintendent Bauer had talked about it, but this is like the first time that I've ever like publicly heard about it. So that's
Yes.
awesome. So thank you.
Yeah, we spent the first few months kind of trying to figure out like where we stood and what kind of like what's the work going to look like, and then now we're able to go out and meet other bodies. So we were at the Human Rights and Inclusion Committee meeting last week, here tonight, and then with the public forums, we're hoping that will give a little bit more visibility into the commission as well.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and please feel free, to like let us know if there's any information to share. If you would like to come back, we're always happy to have more community
Absolutely.
members.
Yeah, I will be sending an updated flyer for the 2 public forums to the superintendent's office. And so all of you will get that, and hopefully also go out to community, all the families, because he did just a great job of doing that right after our first meeting. So thank you for that. We really are looking forward to having the community involved.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Christy. Looking forward to the forum. I have the date change. That's going to be wonderful, and I'll make sure to get that information in the update that we send out to our community.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. We're ready to move on to our next topic. Mr. Landers. Whoops.
Thank
There we
you,
go.
Superintendent
Good
Bauer.
slide.
I want to thank the board again for giving me the opportunity to come before you and to try to give you a bit of an update in terms of what's been going on the last year. I'll start out with what I think is probably the best news that we've had in a while from a budgetary standpoint, and that is that the assessment request from the Voc-Tech Aggie School is about 2.47% above last year. So the assessment is more or less stable year over year, and that's a positive thing, and it's reflective of the attendance from the Danvers community, which is also sort of stabilized and actually went down slightly this year. So we had some good results in regards to the budgetary standpoint, and that's been positive. In regards to this particular year's admissions, or at least applications, those are also relatively steady from the past year. I think we're about 150 roughly. Those aren't all from the Holton Richmond. There are a number of kids who are in other locations from Danvers that have also applied. I think it was about 138 was from the Holton Richmond. That's consistent with previous years. So assuming that the admissions process is consistent in regards to, you get a certain number of admissions out of that same number of applications, we would also expect to see a steady number next year in regards to the enrollment, which should also hope to stabilize that budgetary item as well. I will give you just a little bit of an update in regards to my role on the admissions subcommittee. And I will tell you that the focus that we have had as a subcommittee has been to try to find ways to increase the number of students within certain groups coming into that school, so that we've been able to increase the diversity. in an attempt to try to diversify the student body as best possible. We've had some outreach into communities like Peabody and Salem, Gloucester, in an attempt to try to access kids who have multiple languages within their home, and to try to make the application process and the admissions process easier for those kids. And that did pay some dividends in this particular year's acceptance class, and that we have once again increased our diversity. I fairly certain that our school, I can't give you the exact numbers, but the Voc Tech school is more diversified, I think, than any community except for Salem in the as far as the sending communities. So that's been a focus. I know there's been quite a bit of conversation both on a local level in regards to quotas or to trying to come up with some type of a process that is going to be let's say less selective from the standpoint of maybe merit based, and trying to introduce some level of a lottery. And the school committee has been, and the administration has been very opposed to that at Essex Voc Tech. I think, as you know, on a local level, we've had a number of discussions about the value that a lottery might play in terms of Danvers, in regards to making sure that the number of students that are there from Danvers are best representative of the overall sort of population of the sending district. Really, when they talk about the lottery in this case, though, they're really talking about just trying to basically take away any of the more or less subjective measures in regards to the admissions process. And the board, although I have mixed feelings personally about that, the board's viewpoint has been that the state legislation that has been proposed and is sort of moving through the legislature right now is too much of a one size fits all, and probably is not necessarily the best situation for our particular district. But I do think that it's important for people to know, and I think I might have said this the last time, we do have a lottery, an admissions lottery, as it relates to the non-sending communities. So those kids who apply for purely from the agricultural side, the Essex County side, and there is a lottery in that situation. So it's sometimes a little tough for our administration to fight very, very hard against the lottery in terms of the sending districts, but to have a lottery and it's worked relatively well the last 2 years. But there are differences there, and I think those differences are important. Beyond that, I can tell you that in terms of the Danvers students that are there, by all accounts, they've done well. They continue to do well. They are a really important part of the school community. They're active in all of the elements, both athletic and student government, and some of the other stuff that they've got there. And so I think that as I've said to you before, I have 2 jobs really. My first job is to make sure that the students from Danvers are getting the best possible education that they can, and I continue to be comfortable and confident that that's happening. Then, of course, my other role is to try to find ways to keep that budget at least a manageable situation, so that we know where we're going to be year to year. And I'm not going to take any credit for this year's sort of lower number, but I do think that was positive, and it should be looked at that way. So that's sort of the update from this standpoint right now. And if you guys have any questions, I'm more than happy to try to answer them.
Mike, I just want to say thank you, because I feel like you always have the kids' best interest, but also very logical, and you also have Danvers, the town's best interest. And I'm sure that sometimes, a little bit challenging because you're playing 2 different roles, but I really appreciate all the work and the way that you represent the community. So thank you.
Thank you, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank especially you, Alice, and Robin, for your service as well. I really appreciate the what you guys have done on behalf of, and I'm a bit envious. There is certainly a position at the Essex Voc Tech if either one of you are interested in taking it. So.
Oh no, we just reappointed you. You have like what 2.5 more years of that. Term?
Yeah, whatever again, if you want to, feel free. So.
Well, thank you. I can only speak for myself. I've enjoyed working with you, and you know where to find me.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, if I could,
Sure.
Mike, first of all, I echo Robin's comments in terms of thank you for the service that you're doing, and I do think you are negotiating those two roles quite well. One question for you is just, can you talk about, what's happening in terms of current expansion plans? Is it, buildings? Is it programs? I know that there are things percolating there, and wondering if you can give us an update on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be fair to say that the administration is committed to expanding the size of the school. That they look at an admission situation in which I think at this point right now, roughly about 2/3 of the kids who apply are turned away in terms of that application process. So I think they see lots of desire, not a whole lot of capacity. I know that I've said this to you guys, I think the last time I was here, and I believe it strongly too personally, that there is a point from the standpoint of expansion where we start to see diminishing returns. I speak in that respect solely on my own opinion. That is not an opinion, I don't think, at this point, that is shared by virtually anybody else up there. But we have unique needs and desires as the host community as well, which are different than everybody else. But there is an expansion right now of the veterinary program. They do have an application or a submission to the state for additional expansion up there. I mean, as you guys know better than anybody how that process works. It generally takes a number of years before you even are going to be considered, and they're not near that point yet. But every year that application is submitted, and at some point that is probably going to be approved. There is construction right now on what is considered, I think, the East Campus. I always get a difference. I always consider it the old campus, sort of on the top of 62. But that isn't really. They've done a lot of work up there in regards to sort of converting some space that was used more for administrative things into classroom space. They've got the advantage of the fact that there's a bit of a captive workforce to a certain extent, which is great because those kids who are in those trade programs have the opportunity to be able to utilize those skills in developing some of these and converting some of these areas. But it also is a heck of a lot cheaper than, say, we would pay in Danvers to be able to do a similar type of a situation. So there's an advantage in that respect, and they fully utilize that advantage in terms of it. But yeah, I think there certainly would be a desire to expand the program. This certainly is sort of the applicant pool to be able to do that. But at this point right now, I just don't think there's the money available to do any appreciable expansions beyond the increase in the veterinary stuff and tweaking on the corners with programming. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Great. Madam Chair, just quick question for Mike. So Mike, thanks again for your work with this. I just, at the beginning of your presentation, I just wanted to get my head around the numbers. Did you say there was 138 HRMS applications that went out? Is that?
I believe 138. I think it was 150 from Danvers total, and I think 12 of those kids came from, say, St. Mary's and kids that are in other programs with it. So we remain the second highest number. We're not quite even near Peabody. I think Peabody had well over 250 applicants. But we were once again second. There was a bit of a switch between Beverly and Salem this year. Beverly had more applications than Salem, probably because Salem is starting to put some programming into their own system in regards to to some vocational programs, and so the thought process is maybe that might diminish. I will say again, I know I talked a little bit about that effort within the English, the English as a second language community. Interestingly enough, although those efforts were really pushed into, again, Salem, Peabody, and Gloucester, we had, I believe, 10 times more applications from Revere this year. And there was, no one's exactly sure why, but there was sort of a thought process that the kids from Revere, through family and friends that were reached out in other communities, saw this as a great opportunity and made the application for the out of district. Well, not the out of district, but as they're part of the agricultural side of it with it. So they, the thing that people do sometimes don't know though, and this is why those numbers don't always translate as well into actual acceptances, is that if you apply from outside of one of the sending communities, you are only applying for those agricultural programs. So what we would look at is traditional vocational programs like carpentry, like electrical, like HVAC. The kids from only the kids from the sending district communities are eligible to be able to look at those programming and get into those programs when they do come in. So all the kids from outside of, from Haverhill, from Lawrence, from Revere, from Lynn, they're all in agricultural based programming with it. So.
Got it. And just to follow up on that, is in rough idea, I'm just doing this off the top of my head. I think it was like between 30 and 40 kids last year that that ended up going from Danvers. Is that correct?
No, I think we're at 56
Okay.
or range. Yeah, it's ends up being roughly about a third of, in the past, that's been the number. A little more than a third of the students that apply end up attending. Has been the, and those numbers have stayed relatively consistent the last years. So,
Great. Nope, that's all I had. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yeah.
Having a student who's going through the process as an 8th grader, I'm just curious, Mike, like it's interesting to me that, or unless they are school counselors at all spoken to about like their proper fit? Because I think the conversation has always been, are the right kids being sent there? Those that would, you know, take advantage of certain programs over others. So I'm just curious more about that application process, about, you know, engaging more with the sending schools and really digging more into the students rather than, you know, what you were talking about in terms of that, making the admission process just a bit easier, but more accessible for even some of those students.
yeah, so it's interesting from the sending district side of it. And this is a good or bad thing depending upon it. I think it's both a good or bad thing. I think 40% of the admissions process right now is the interview. You know, on the surface, I think sometimes you look at that and you go, okay, what are you really going to gain from interviewing an 8th grader? You know, I mean, I think we've all had 8th graders at some point, or if you haven't, good luck to you, unfortunately. But what they really try to focus on in terms of that interview is, why do you want to go to the school? Is the reason you want to go to the school because you want to play hockey at the school? And that's a negative, quite frankly, when they look at it. They want to make sure. And so even though that is really, really, really super subjective, I think it does play some value, and it has probably helped over the last couple of years in getting a more, again, that more diversified, both from a cultural and language-based situation, but also from the standpoint of getting a diversified number of kids, rather than, I think, where they were 3 or 4 years ago, which was all those kids that were above average, but maybe not necessarily the kids who needed or we're gonna benefit the most from these programs. So yeah, and that still is a challenge in my estimation from what I've seen up. Yeah, I think it really is, because a lot of the kids still do go into college programs, and I'm not convinced, frankly, from what I've seen, that the kids who go there just simply because they want to try to go to college are being best served from that. I still believe very strongly that our honors programs and AP programs are far better for a kid who wants to go into college, and regardless of what you want to go into for college. But they have worked hard to improve that, and I think they recognize it. There are AP programs up there, but again, that's just me, and I might be dead wrong about that. I don't know, but probably not. So
You bring up a good point that I think as parents are looking at this as an option to make sure you're evaluating all the choices, right? And Mr. Federico, I know, has an open door policy and will allow you to go in and talk to him about, what are the best options for your child. So I think to your point, right, it becomes, making sure you're evaluating all the options that are available.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Landers. You are happy. We are welcome to stay on, or you can leave. Up to you. But thank you for coming.
No,
I'm sure we'll see you soon.
my wife is telling me it's time for me to cook at this point. So
We'll
but
let you go then.
I thank you, and I look forward next year to coming back, unless again you or Alice want a new position.
Okay. We'll think about it. We'll get back to you.
Bye. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Have a great. Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. All right, we're up to our next topic, which is our athletic Drew Betts. Has two items. He has a group of students that will present an idea for fundraising and also fitness center improvements. Mr. Betts, take it away.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys very much for having me tonight. Like Mr. Bauer said, we do have two things, and I do want to kind of introduce our first group, but we've been trying to do a lot with student leadership here at the high school to sort of increase some student voice and sort of see some of the things that they, want to take some ownership over here at the programs that they, put so much time and energy into. And so we've had a number of different people participate in a training at Northeastern a couple weeks back, which kind of addressed sort of hate in sport. And then we've also had right around 20 total students participate, or 25 total students participate in MIA leadership training run by Deb and Trevor Holt, which talk a little bit about your reasons why. So it's like, why do you participate for this team? Why do you compete for your community? And finally, we had a group of 10 students participate in the Captain's Collaborative. But the group that I'm sort of most excited to sort of introduce you to is a group that's in a class called Project Citizen. So in one of my first entries into the Danvers community was at a school committee meeting last spring. And Mr. White, who runs this class, does an incredible job in sort of creating opportunities for students to really sort of learn a real life process of how to get things done. So this group has done a lot in trying to increase student engagement within our community. So I'll sort of turn it over to these sort of 7 seniors. If we're able to kind of go, I think maybe 2-3 slides ahead, I will let them sort of speak on their project.
Hello, members of the school committee and the community. We greatly appreciate having the opportunity to meet with you today. Hello, my name is Liam Brooks, and I'm joined with my group members, Bobby Fish, Mike Galicio, Tyler Inglis, Bobby Serino, Maddie Chase, and Liv Ferullo. Today, we brought here from our senior elective, Project Citizen. For our end of the year project, we have been tasked with facing a problem we observed in our community and changing a public policy to do so.
The problem we as a group have decided to tackle is a lack of attendance at athletic events. As a group of student athletes, we understand the power and unity that a strong crowd at athletic events can bring. We as a group would like to continue the hard work of the school's administration to increase camaraderie within the school. Apart from increasing unity, increased attendance will also increase Boosters program success with a wider audience attending each event. In order to target this issue, we believe attendance would increase with the elimination of students paying at the door as they find cash to be inconvenient. In order to prove this concept, we sent out a Google form to our peers through emails and signs around the school. With nearly 200 responses, we have found nearly 70% of students responded they would attend more games with lower prices, and about 40% of students said that admissions prices have prevented them from attending a game.
Originally, when starting this project, our team thought it would be more beneficial to eliminate attendance costs for students altogether. However, after investigating the use of the athletic department's money, we decided that this cut in money would cause the athletic department to either raise registration costs or find alternative fundraising methods that could cause negative competition with booster programs. We plan to mitigate this problem by implementing something called the Falcon Fan Pass. This Falcon Fan Pass would be an alternative to student admission. This would be a pass you could purchase on the Danvers Athletic website. An estimated cost would be about $40, and it would give access to all students to all home regular season games.
We recognize that there might be some concerns in regards to this new payment method. The most obvious being discrepancy in revenue from our ticket sales, but after looking at the numbers, our team doesn't see this to be an issue, as students would only have to attend 8 games over the course of the whole school year to break even on the pass. And for students who have opted not to buy the pass, regular ticket purchase will still be available at the door. We also acknowledge that the pass is only being offered right now to students as opposed to parents as well. But if this initiative is successful, we hope to expand it to parents over the next few years. And we believe the upfront purchase of these tickets will serve as an incentive for more students to attend games, which will also work to increase the revenue of individual sports boosters programs.
So what we are proposing is that the Danvers High School Athletics offer students a year-long athletic attendance pass for $40, allowing access to all home regular season games during the 2024-2025 school year. Tickets will still be at the door for those who do not purchase the pass, and we would like to revisit expanding this program to parents at a later date, pending the success of the pass within the student population.
Thank you all so much for making the time for us during your meeting today, and we will be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Right. Hi, Bobby. You didn't tell me you were presenting.
No,
My
I meant
cousin.
the
Sorry. I had to acknowledge her. I didn't know she was presenting. Anyone want to go first? Comments? Questions?
Madam Chair, you mind if I go first?
Sure.
Great. I love this idea. I 100% agree with you about building the community and getting more support out watching you play sports. Currently, besides football, what other events is there a cost to enter to watch?
So right now it's $5 for students and $7 for any adult spectators. And the events that we charge for is football, girls basketball, boys basketball, and both teams for ice hockey.
In hockey, okay. Any thoughts about expanding this to middle school students?
We hadn't considered that right now. Mr. Betts worked with the hockey program this winter, and we had a youth night at one point, which each student could bring a parent, and as long as the parent bought their ticket, the student was allowed in for free. So we could look at something like that.
I've been to events and I know the middle school students love coming out and watching you all play your sports. I have 2 kids who play in youth sports, and all the youth nights that you host for them, they have such a good time. So that's why I was just curious about expanding it out to the younger students. I love this. I think it's fantastic. And I like that you identified the need to, get a larger attendance and finding it from within your walls to do so. So I think this is a great idea.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just a quick question.
Sure.
So yeah, I too, I like this idea. I think it's a great idea. Just a logistical question. Is this going to be like a physical pass that they're going to have to carry with them, or is this going to be like something that they could show in their phone?
Yeah, we intend for it to be a physical pass, very similar to the way that student IDs work now. So after our school pictures are taken at the beginning of the year, we're handed a physical student ID that just kind of fits in your wallet, and where it's possible that a QR code could be an option as well, that just kind of lets people bypass paying at the door at athletic events.
Great. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo. I think this is awesome. I love that it was grown from students. My question though is, if you're all seniors, do you have someone or a group below you who is willing to take this on once you graduate?
So the Project Citizen class runs every year. I think course selection was a few weeks ago. So ideally, a group in this class next year would work off of what we've done. Like how we said, we plan to expand to parents within the next few years. If this goes well, that'd be great if that's something we would get going. But we'll have to see how it works because obviously this pass wouldn't be implemented until the next school year starts. So.
Yeah, because I like you did all the work. I think it would be great if someone, like you said, the next group of kids in the class is willing to actually like then implement it. So thank you. Anyone else?
Quick question, Madam Chair.
Sure.
First of all, love the idea of the pass. Credit, all kudos to you for coming up with it and implementing it. My question really is for Drew in terms of the various trainings that students and captains have taken. That was an important initiative for us after the event several years ago. Are you seeing positive reactions and results from our student athletes related to these trainings?
Yeah, I can kind of speak to that part. So I've kind of apologized to this group already because I've sort of targeted our 9th through 11th graders just because they'll be sort of like our rising captains and leaders. And I think the response from a lot of the student athletes has been really, really positive because we've really tried to make it in a much more smaller sort of intimate group so that way you are able to sort of practice those things. Like if I target the captain's collaborative group, like they had to public speak. So they had to practice their speech to deliver their reasons why they play their sport or why they compete. And a lot of times that's a really hard thing to do in front of their peers. So they were able to kind of gain a little bit of confidence there. And the same is true. It's like I've been trying to do a lot of consistent captain's check-ins just in terms of like, how are you dealing with different challenges in certain things or when a problem arises? And I think that's been, from my standpoint, really beneficial just to getting to know a lot of our student athletes. And then my hope is that for our student athletes, it's, they're feeling supported in whatever challenges that they're facing on a daily basis.
Good. I appreciate that. I think it's the establishing the levels of communication and those check-ins are going to be valuable both now and in the future. Because it's a challenging thing, I'm sure, to be a leader, student leader and a captain, and to sort of work on making sure that our athletes are making the right decisions all the time is something that can be a team effort.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, students, for presenting. It's amazing work. We love to hear from all of you. We love to hear about Project Citizen every year. Thank you, Mr. Betts. Students, you are welcome to stay for the rest of the committee, but I'm sure you have much more exciting things to do. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Great
Hi.
job. Great presentation. Mr. Betts is not quite done yet, Madam Chair.
I know. I was dismissing the children first. I know.
Sorry.
I apologize. You guys are stuck with me a bunch tonight. But yeah,
Mr. Betts, just let me know when to change the slides. I'm happy to do that for you.
Yeah. So I guess with this next piece, what if you, Ms. Brower, if you are willing to kind of jump to the next slide, my hope is I'm looking to kind of get approval to start a fundraising project through different grants and donations to really update and improve our wellness center space or our weight training room. My hope is to make this space one that's substantially used a lot more by our PE classes here at the high school, as well as all of our athletic programs. So this year there is a stipended position for a wellness supervisor. We were able to fill that. And so now we have our, this space is open every single day after school, Monday through Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. And that can be for students that participate in sports, for students that don't, could be in season, out of season. But my hope is that we really start to take advantage of the wonderful space it is and make it a lot more functional for every person in this building. And so that's where, like I said, it's been great kind of working with this BAS group because I think they were sort of the group that experienced through COVID into like different restrictions. And so now it almost became that wellness center space was almost kind of like always a closed door space. And my hope is that we're able to sort of renovate and improve this space so that way we're teaching sort of functional fitness for the entirety of their time here at the high school and hopefully sort of beyond that. So that's kind of my goal and kind of sharing some of the things about today. So like I said, just to summarize, my goal it is to get sort of approval to start to fundraise and to look for grants to kind of sort of improve this space. Ms. Bauer, if you can jump to the next slide, please. So this is where it's something that who would this be going out to? Because like they've talked about, and I know you guys have had to deal with all the time, it's always about money. So where can we get money? Where can we do this? And my hope is it's something that it's a space that we can kind of tap into a lot of different opportunities for, whether it's through local businesses, whether it's through vendors that we currently use, whether it's working with our booster clubs. So we're trying to consolidate and work with all of our booster clubs to sort of streamline some of their processes. Because I know fundraising is something that everybody's looking to do, and we want to also make sure that we're strategic and not, asking in the same people time and time again for a lot of those different funds. Similar with this group, because I know sadly they will be alumni in just a few short months, but my hope is that this is a space that, alumni can start to participate in, to take a little bit of pride in. That it's like, if they look back in their, as multi-sport athletes, how could they have used this space a little bit better? And I think, from a true space standpoint, it's incredible. We just want to make sure that it's kind of, I say given a facelift, for lack of a better term. So Mr. Bauer, if you're able to kind of go to the next slides, this is kind of just a general idea of just a picture of sort of generally what it would look like. So the hope is that that's our estimated cost. The reason I put an estimation is just because as is the cost, as is with everything, weights in particular, that weight fluctuates. So a lot of times, whether it's like 89 cents a pound to $1 a pound. And so that's why it's just kind of that fluctuating window. But my hope is that we sort of open up the space and make it a lot more functional. So you can see we have, 7 platforms. On here we have a sled mill. And we sort of decreased sort of our use of cardio equipment to open the space, so that way, if we have a weight training and conditioning class here at school, you can have as many as 30 to 35 students in there being active at one time. And then same is true after school, whether it's teams are rotating through. So like right now, we sort of set up a little bit of a calendar. Spring, because we have so many student athletes in session, it's not being used as much. But in our winter season, hockey was in there on Mondays from 2 to 3, followed by jumping in with football from 3 to 4. The next day, it was girls lacrosse from 2 to 3, followed up by field hockey from 3 to 4. So my hope is that by having a lot more of a functional space, this space is getting used a lot more. And it's something that can help not only our students in PE classes, but also our student athletes in whatever program they're competing with after school. And that's just another picture of what that space could potentially look like.
Okay. Mr. Cran, I have a question for you. I know people are going to have questions and comments. So, Drew, I know you said asking for permission to fundraise and grants. We don't have to do we have to technically give that, Eric? Or is it more like a courtesy, letting us know?
Well, we do approve
The fundraisers.
fundraising requests. I think grants, I wouldn't think that we would have to approve, requests for grants, but certainly we would approve the fundraising piece of this at the very least. Yep.
Okay. So, Drew, just to clarify, you are asking permission for the fundraising from the school committee.
Yeah, the fundraising piece,
Okay.
yeah. And then I also will tell you, I would be looking for grants, and that's something that my hope is to kind of work with Mary on as well, because like I said, you see that number, it is a healthy price tag to attach to it. And so that's where my hope is, that it is not, a 100% fundraised endeavor.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, comments for Drew from the school committee?
Have we, Drew, has there been any discussion with the town about this? And I say that both from a, like a structural standpoint of, any renovations that are going to be done, and they technically maintain and control the buildings for us. So have you, had discussions or communicated with the town about your intentions here?
Yeah, so I've chatted with DPW here in the building, and there's kind of, again, since it is so initial, there hasn't been a ton of engagement with that. I've also run this by our rec department, just because they are also a group that uses the space a lot through the summer and weekends, and then also run it through all of our PE staff. Just because obviously my hope is that they would be ones that are really taking advantage of the space a lot more, just to make sure that they're on board with kind of the ideas behind it.
Yeah, I would say you may want to, as this takes shape, just talk to David Lane, the heads of departments down there, and just because they may be able to help too in terms of the planning and actually getting some of the work done. So
Absolutely.
it's worth looping them into the conversation generally, I think.
Yeah, agreed. I love the idea. I think that it's community, right? So like you don't have to be an athlete or on a team to be able to come here and like work out. And I love that because you can also like build your own community as a place after school. So I like that it's going to be open to everyone in the school.
And I think that's where to kind of build on that. We're trying to be a little bit strategic with times because I think a lot of times the stigma around it is it's like this program uses this at this time. And then, if you see 15 people walking in and if you might be a little bit more timid, you're the one walking out. And that's where, like I said, it's been a huge benefit to have our wellness supervisor in there all the time because he's been helping sort of design and sort of get people a little bit more comfortable in the space. Just because, I mean, I can speak like when you walk into a fitness center, it is a little bit of an overwhelming feeling. And so he's been doing a really nice job in terms of like supporting student engagement with that.
Great. Gabe and then Alice.
Hey, Drew. You may know or not know. I think we had a policy meeting earlier today, and we're still trying to get our heads around, having funds from gym usage flow directly to the high school. But it looks like we're struggling with people who are gonna, help manage it and operate it. I mean, there are, various organizations or, youth sports teams like volleyball teams and basketball clinics that are always looking for gyms. Our surrounding, community gyms are full and ours are empty. And, I think between starting this conversation last year, we probably could have raised $30,000 without exaggeration, hosting a clinic, a softball thing or something. So if there's a serious commitment to this and you got some staff that are willing to, put some time in, and maybe it's like, some staff and student, staff supervised, but anyone who could help, manage something like this in collaboration with the town, I think could be huge. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind. Dan setting up a follow-up policy meeting, but seriously, I mean, let's talk about that. It could be anything from renting out the stage to, wrestling, events, youth events. People are always looking for space. And I was coaching at the prep for a while, and there was a long waiting list. And as the varsity teams walked out, 9 and 10-year-old volleyball players were coming in. And when they went out, sword fighting came in or pickleball. So you name it, people are always looking for space, safe space, bright space, monitored space. So happy to help you, think about that. But this is exactly why I advocate for, one, opening up our facilities to the community, getting that money and putting it directly into stuff like this. This is exactly why I'm pushing for this so hard.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, Mr. Bauer's been super helpful in sort of keeping me engaged with that. And then, like I said, I can only briefly speak to this in terms of what we're trying to do, because I agree with you in terms of like, how can we get our coaches in front of kids in different ways? And again, I think it's like a little bit of a two-part one, but we are trying to do a lot with like strength and conditioning camps this summer and things like that. And for some of our younger students, so that way it's like they're learning about sort of these things. And a lot of times, like, individual teams can start to use those as potential like benefits for their program. And then it's also like, I think it's just a benefit as from a coaching standpoint, like if you yourself are getting in front of the kids, it's a great opportunity just to like work with them and get kind of a touch point with them as well.
Yep.
Drew, I think this is a great idea. I've heard quite a bit of feedback about our high school gym needing to be upgraded. So thank you for taking that initiative to begin this conversation. And, I guess budgets have been finalized, but it just saddens me that we have to look to fundraise and look for grants to fund this, so hopefully as we think through budgets and, it doesn't all have to come through fundraising, and hopefully working with Mary, you can find some available grants for you to use for this, because I do believe it's really important to all the students at the high school, athletes, you know, even those that aren't on a team. So thank you for beginning this conversation. I think it's an important one for us to have.
Thank you all very much.
Okay, so we need a motion for Drew, and I know that like there's obviously this is like a very start and there's a lot of people still to talk to, but and Eric, stop me if I'm wrong if you think it's too early, but to approve for Drew to receive fundraising to renovate the high school wellness center.
I'm sorry, the last part of what you said, Robin, was
I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but we
Nope.
want a motion if we're ready to be able to approve Drew to start fundraising
Yes.
to improve the wellness center at the high school.
Yes, I would make a motion that we give approval to the athletic director to begin fundraising towards the improvement of the wellness center as stated, subject to approval of any individual fundraising events and efforts from the school committee.
Yep, I would second that.
Okay, Janet, can you do a roll call?
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again, Drew, and please let us know how we can help you and updates. And as Eric said, I know that there's definitely people within different positions in the town that could also definitely help you and support you in other ways also. So, but please let us know what we can do. And good luck.
Can I add one thing, Madam
Yeah.
Chair? So, well,
Oh, Eric, you're on mute.
I made the motion subject to the approval of the school committee for individual events, simply because we've got to be able to look at and approve whatever fundraising events are undertaken. But from Drew's standpoint, that can either be, hey, here's my full fundraising plan. You know, these events are what are planned as of now. Can you approve them as a group? Or he could come, you know, with an individual fundraiser at any time, but we do have to approve them. That's the only thing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. But we approve you to start looking into fundraising.
Yep, that's very helpful. Thank you all very much.
All right. Thank you, Drew. You're welcome to stay. You can leave. It's up to you, but thank you.
Unfortunately, you get to hear from me one more time a little bit later tonight.
Oh, okay. All right.
All right, thank you very much. We're moving on to the next one, and this is our preschool program review. As mentioned earlier, an audit was conducted of our pre-K programming, done by an independent group, Seaside Consultants, and that was through the desire of really looking at our pre-K programming in terms of strengths, areas that need to be addressed, and just the overall health of the program. And certainly, we're very pleased with the work and the recommendations that came out, as well as the accolades. So a big part of this process involved our pre-K coordinator, Bethany Stangus, who's on, and we'll walk through the audit and the findings, recommendations, and where we're at. And also credit goes to Dr. Eric Oxford, the elementary special education coordinator who worked with Ms. Stangus to set up the audit and work through the audit. And I actually sat down and was briefed with the executive summary and was impressed with the findings, and also a lot of promise for some recommendations that were put forth. So happy to report out, and I don't want to steal Bethany's thunder. And Bethany, you are on, so please tell me when to change the slides as we move forward.
All right, sounds good. All right, so hi everybody, I'm Bethany Stangus. I am the preschool coordinator. So like Mr. Bauer said, I'll be talking about our program review. All right, I'm ready for my next slide. All right, so before we jump into the review, I thought it would be helpful to give you guys kind of a preschool at a glance so that everyone is understanding what we have currently going on. So our current structure of preschool is we have programming at our Riverside School and at our Thorpe School. We are planning to all move together under one roof to Riverside School next year, but for right now, what it looks like is over at Thorpe School, we have 2 half-day integrated preschool classrooms. So within those classrooms, we have an AM session and a PM session, so a total of 4 half-day sessions. Additionally, we have one preschool learning center classroom, and that classroom is for students requiring special education who require more sub-separate differentiated instruction. Those students have a higher staff to student ratio, and they are sometimes part of the integrated preschool program, but go in supported with paraprofessionals or teachers from the learning center classroom. Our integrated program has up to 7 students who require special education. And then we also have 8 community peer models who serve as positive peer role models, good language models, good social skills models, just to support the development of our special education students. So that is what we have going on at Thorpe. Over at Riverside, we have pretty much the exact same structure. We also have 2 half-day integrated preschool classrooms with an AM session and a PM session, so a total of 4 half-day sessions. We also have one preschool learning center, just like what I just talked about. The only difference is that we also have a full-day integrated preschool program. So same model where there are students who require special education and then also peer role models, but this is a longer time span. So our half-day programs run from 8:30 to 11 or from 11:45 to 2:15. The full-day program mirrors more of what the Learning Center does and has a full-day program, so they run from 8:30 to 1. And the way that program specifically is for students in their pre-kindergarten year, so the year before they enter kindergarten. And our rationale for placing students in that program is students who have either done the half-day program and we feel like, you know, they've done well, but they need to have a little bit more of a robust program in preparing for kindergarten. Or on the flip side, either students who have been part of our Learning Center programs who have done really well, are accessing inclusion within the integrated program, and are ready for kind of a step down, a less restrictive program. So they're able to do that full day integrated with that same amount of time frame, but with peers in their program as well. And I know I mentioned that we have up to 15 students in our integrated program. Our Learning Center program has up to 9 students. And like I said, it is a self-contained program, so there are not peers as part of that program, but they do spend time as appropriate in the integrated classroom. So currently in our preschool, we have 70 students who require special education, and then we have 67 peer partners coming to school with us. Our enrollment does differ depending on when you talk to us throughout the year because we are a rolling admission program. Our program begins when students turn 3. So whether a student is referred by family or they're aging out of an early intervention program, our services start at age 3. So since kids turn 3 all year round, kids come and join us all year round. And then lastly, the cost of our program, it is free for students who require special education, but our half-day peers pay currently $15 a day for the program. And then our full-day students pay $30 a day for the program. All right, I'm ready for my next slide. All right, so like Mr. Bauer said, you know, we were really excited to have this happen for preschool. Preschool is coming together next year at Riverside School, and we were very excited to have it looked at with this critical lens. The preschool model has been pretty much the same since I've been on board, and I want to say this is my 7th or 8th year, and for a really long time before that. We really, you know, we didn't want to just be comfortable in what we've been doing all these years. We wanted an objective view, someone to come and look at what we've been doing, to look at our current model and how can we make it better. We already feel great that we're going to be together under one roof, but that really gives us a lot of ways in which we can stretch and grow our program. We specifically want to look at, are we carrying out our services in a way that is going to maximize student progress? There are a lot of staff involved in preschool, and we wanted to make sure that we were utilizing our staffing efficiently. Do we have the right amount of support, and are we using them correctly? And then lastly, preschool curriculum. We started employing a formalized curriculum a couple of years ago. We want to make sure that the curriculum that we're using is appropriate for the students that we are serving. Okay, next slide. All right, perfect. So the structure of our preschool interview, our review structure contained a couple of different pieces. We met all together, some of the stakeholders, some of the administrators, myself, and the preschool reviewers, and we looked at what we were aiming to accomplish through this review. So the first thing that they did is they interviewed a lot of our stakeholders. I was very excited that everyone was really excited to participate in these interviews. They took place over the course of a week or two. They were about an hour long. Most of them were individual, a couple of groups. A total of over 20 staff members associated with the preschool program took place in the interview process. We had teachers, service providers, our paraprofessionals, myself, our principals all participated. Also, Tina Marie from curriculum participated as well. Also, we had about 10 parents participate in addition, and these were parents of both students requiring special education and also some of our peers to give some feedback on their perspective of the program. The next step is they came in and they did a bunch of observations. They observed every single one of our preschool classrooms for at least a half an hour. They also took a look at our service providers, our speech therapists, OT, PT, and looked at what they're doing in their service sessions. Additionally, they looked at some of our documentation. We did get parent permission and sent out a form to parents just informing them about the review process. And parents who gave us permission, we did share things like evaluation reports, our progress notes, our IEPs, peer progress notes, just so that they could see some of the written output that comes from our preschool program. And then the last piece of the review was that we did do a walkthrough of Riverside School. Myself and Sarah Fitzgerald, our principal, took them around and we talked about bringing everybody from preschool over together to Riverside next year and just some of the things that we were thinking about, classrooms we were planning to use, some of the resources that we were hoping to gain prior to then, and just things that we had to consider, such as parking and arrival and dismissal and all kind of the little pieces of preschool that might get overlooked. Next slide, please. All right. So overall, they had a lot of good things to say about our preschool program. I'm of course biased. I love our preschool program very much, but they shared that we have very qualified, hardworking staff. Our preschool program, they said it's very much like a department, which I think is a good way of looking at it. It's a big program. We have a total of 7 classrooms, a lot going on, a lot of students, as you guys saw. And so they said, you know, everybody is working really hard to collaborate. Every single preschool classroom has a lead teacher and at least 2 paraprofessionals. So there's a lot of scaffolding within the different classrooms of support and what have you, and a lot of people who need to be working together with a common goal. So they said that they saw really great collaboration, not just between the preschool teachers and the paraprofessionals, but also our service providers and all the different players. They were really pleased to see that. Additionally, they talked a lot about our preschool curriculum. We implemented 3 cheers for preschool curriculum, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and they had a lot of positive things to say about that. Additionally, the program itself is for a full-day program, so we have modified it and made it work within our program, so they were pleased to see what we've been doing with that and the pieces that we've pulled out. Additionally, we're using curriculum that children are using when they head up to elementary school. We do use the Haggerty Phonemic Awareness curriculum that if you guys have kids in the younger grades, I'm sure you've heard about. So the kids in our preschool are ready and have worked with that program. So when they head up to kindergarten, that is familiar to them. Additionally, all of our classes are taught by special educators. So they were very pleased to see how proactive our special educators are. There were a lot of things put in our classroom, such as modifications and accommodations that were beneficial at a tier 1 level that are going to be great for all of our students, not just students requiring it through their individualized education plans. Really seeing things within our classrooms that are beneficial to all of our students. All right, so some of the areas that they said would be great for growth. So like I said earlier, we do have rolling admission. So if you think about that, our programming and what we need in terms of service providers and staffing looks very different in September than it does in June. It is a little bit tricky because when you think about our needs for something like speech and language caseloads, what have you, planning ahead throughout the year to know how our speech and language therapists and our OTs and our PTs, how their schedules are going to fill up and how they're grouping kids, they did recommend a little bit more oversight in that process. They also talked about our evaluation and peer screening process. Our kids are little. When they come to us, they're just 3. So we're not always able to get a real qualitative sample, but they had some great recommendations of some stronger assessment tools that we might be able to get more standardized measures when we're evaluating children. Because right now, most of our evaluation are mostly observation based. Sometimes we'll attempt an assessment that's more formalized, doesn't always work. So they had some good recommendations on how they could implement that. Additionally, they talked about how we could implement more of a peer screening process. We do accept everyone who asks to join as a peer, but it would be helpful to get a screening process up and running just so that when we're looking at class placements, we're kind of balancing out our classrooms. Then also we talked a lot about our process when kids go from preschool to kindergarten. Currently, we do have a preschool to kindergarten process for our special education students. So for those students requiring special education, we do preschool transition meetings. So we plan each spring and we hold an IEP meeting that has all of their preschool-based team and then their sending team or the receiving team up in kindergarten. So they're a kindergarten teacher representative, the special educators up there, if they get speech, a speech pathologist, so that we're talking about what kids will need with their family heading up there. But they did talk a little bit about strengthening that process and allowing for more conversations to take place. So that's definitely something that we're interested in looking into. And lastly, they did talk a little bit about improved communication. This was specifically from families between administration and preschool. So like I said, things change rapidly. And sometimes, you know, we do fill up in terms of our service provision mid-year, and just making sure that there is a consistent plan to communicate that to families and making sure that they know what the plan is to rectify anything that we need to, you know, fix or find additional staff members, what have you. Just that transparency they stressed is really important. All right. And then in terms of specific recommendations, so really good timing, because I know we did just get a new website, but they did recommend that we update the district website for preschool visibility. Right now, I've gotten that feedback from families. It's a little bit hard to find the preschool information on the old website. It's a little lacking in terms of what's really going on. So they did think that we should boost that up, which we are more than happy to do. If you look at preschool and the types of things we're working on, sometimes the professional development that might be for the, you know, K-5 special educators, it might not be really pertinent to the preschool program. So really looking at professional development opportunities that speak to the things that we're working on with kids was another one of their recommendations. They also said a lot of times when our preschool students start with us, it's tricky for them to do things, you know, like sit in a chair and attend for a longer therapy session. So a lot of our therapists when they start with students, they do work with them outside of the classroom. However, they did make the recommendation that we look at providing more and more push-in services. So services within their classroom to really generalize those skills. So everything that they're working on in their therapy session, they're also working on in their classroom. So that's another thing that we definitely want to talk about. They also recommended that we look a little bit at the administrative structure of the preschool program. So as you guys know, we added coordinators a few years ago, and those coordinators are administrative level people. So the preschool coordinator, myself, I am not administrative at this time. It is a little tricky sometimes based on the report of preschool teachers and our staff as far as who's reporting to who and kind of how the chain of command works. They also looked at, in terms of my position currently, I am a part-time preschool coordinator, but I am also the school psychologist for the entire Riverside School, which is a pretty big school at this time. And they did look at other districts with similar sized preschool programs, and most of them did have a preschool coordinator that was a full-time position. So that was something that they did recommend we look at. Lastly, they were definitely in favor of our program transitioning to Riverside to be all together. They did look at things that we might need to improve. For example, we do have a lovely courtyard with a preschool playground, but it could use a little updating, they said. And certain things that when you think about a preschool program, things like having bathrooms that are in some of the classrooms so they're easily accessible. So we're not sending kids, you know, across the school to use the restroom. So those were some of their recommendations. So overall, you know, we were really pleased with this process, and I really just want to thank Superintendent Bauer for really allowing this to happen. I know the preschool team as a whole was really pleased. They really loved working with the consultants, and we're really excited to grow our program to maximize student learning and growth. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
Madam Chair, I mean, I don't have questions. I do think that our preschool program is the best kept secret in our town. Truly, my daughter went through it, and I have nothing but positive things to say about our preschool program, and I wish every student in our town was able to take advantage of it.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Sure.
So I notice, you know, recommendations around increased communication with parents, and that's always been a potential issue, you know, going back to the early days when we really looked deeply at our special education program. So, you know, anything that can be done to improve that is a very good thing. My question is, so now you have the recommendations and you've had the audit and you know a lot of the good things that we're doing. Is there a long-term plan now to put together a long-term plan as to what changes we might make, what we might implement, a timeline, you know, what's the next step in the process now?
So as far as some of these things, I think we can talk about implementing them right away. You know, I think updating a website, what have you, those are things that are easily accessible. I think my hope would be certain things like updating our evaluation procedures. That's something myself and the preschool team can work on in, you know, during our professional development days, what have you. I think those are all things that are very reachable. I think some of the structural pieces, I would lean on Superintendent Bauer and some of the other administration team as far as what they have planned with that, but I think those are important pieces of the puzzle as well.
Right. Yeah, I would think developing a written plan with goals, timeline, et cetera, working with Dan and all the interested stakeholders would be a great way to proceed from here. And the only other thing I would say is, thank you for the work you're doing. It sounds like, you need roller skates to get through that school and get every place you need to be. So
Thank
for the
you.
work you're doing.
Yeah, it sounds like we need a preschool coordinator and then full-time staff. So we have you doing two things, Bethany. But thank you for sharing this. I think too with some of the changes in student services, like hopefully some of these recommendations can, I know some are immediate, but some can maybe start to take place next year too.
Thank you, everybody.
So thank you. So you're welcome to stay, Bethany. You can leave, but thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to head home for bedtime, see if I catch my kid, but thank you so much for having me. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, Bethany.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, I know in an item of new business, we're looking to review the fee proposal. I'm going to ask if I could push that to April 8th, just because we've been studying the comparables, and clearly there's been not an increase in the last 15 years. And as Alice said, and our report shows it is the best kept secret in Danvers. And certainly when you look at other school districts and such, we need to, we're providing great service, but we can do more. So an increased fee, we're just trying to figure out that spot where to land on. So we're going to move that to April 8th, if that's okay with your permission.
Sure.
Okay. Because that is part of the recommendation. And actually it's a nice segue into, and I think you asked a really good question, Mr. Crane, in terms of next steps. And one of those ties into my next piece, which is a special education update. And this is a quick one tonight. And my plan is to bring to you on April 8th, the plan in terms of our special education leadership, which does involve the pre-K program. And that's one of the recommendations. Just taking a look at our current structure, which has a director, then coordinators at the elementary, middle school, and high school level, on top of the administrative assistant support, pre-K and out of district. We've been doing a lot of work in terms of looking at the best way to streamline our leadership programming moving forward. So I will present that to the committee on April 8th. A little bit more work to do, but we've been making a lot of headway. And the plan is to streamline what we have to make it as effective as possible. And that also ties into the building level support that's needed. And it actually ties in well with the programming changes and shifts we're looking to do for next year. And actually, one more piece on the pre-K, as Bethany mentioned, we're moving all the pre-K programming to Riverside. And they're very excited, the staff, because now they can all be under the same roof to collaborate. We're working closely with the DPW to make the changes necessary for the facilities. So I look forward to bringing more information on April 8th in terms of the fee increase proposal for pre-K tuition, as well as the special education leadership model. I want to move into the next piece because, as I mentioned in our last meeting, tying into not only, my evaluation, the superintendent, where I'll provide a report for the school committee to do the summative evaluation, but it's also time to talk about the mid-year district accomplishments and goals. And we have the 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school. And I will send the PowerPoint after the meeting. But the bottom line is I wanted to provide an update. We have members of our team that will cover these goals tonight with you. For example, the elementary, looking at the safe and supportive learning environment, utilizing our vocal data, you'll see where that is. Reading or above grade level 90%, and as well as our ST math. At the middle school, looking at the reading comprehensive scores through iReady, you'll see where they're at right now. Then building that safe and supportive learning environment. And at the high school, again, looking for safe and supportive learning environment, which is common through all of our 3 strands, and that's our district goal, but also looking from foundational strength, executive functioning skills to tie in with core academics and success to high school, and then as well as the postgraduate opportunities. So I'm going to move through this and just kind of chunk it together with elementary. We can pause if you have questions, but there's a lot of information in here. But again, just looking for the safe and supportive environment as measured by the vocal, you can see that each school has implemented its programming to connect with not only expectations of behavior, but also the sense of belonging and really going into how they can build their community at each one of the schools. And I've seen this in operation as I visited the elementary schools throughout the course of the year. And honestly, you've heard snippets of presentations that were made by the elementaries, and I believe Smith is coming up next month. But it's really amazing the work that our elementary schools are doing to improve school culture and continue to build their strong school culture. Forward here. The next piece, and Julie, are you on the call, Julie Pasternak? She will be, because she's going to give a quick update with elementary curriculum. But one of the things that I think, as we look at the goals, and it's a consistent goal, we left it in there, is 90% of all students will read at or above grade level, utilizing the DIBELS as a measurement. The implementation of the MTSS block this year for literacy, which meets 4 times a week. The differentiation that does occur, and I've observed that in all of our schools, elementary schools, when I've been there for visits. But you can see the results speaking for themselves. If you take a look at the chart from left to right, starting last September, where the benchmarks were, the improvement at the mid-year, and then at the end of the year, not quite making that 90%, repeating the goal again with the idea that implementation of MTSS, and let's see where that goes. And you can see where the baseline was about the same for K3, but you can see where the baseline was definitely much higher from grades 4 to 5. And then if you push this a little further, when you take a look at where we're the January 24 data, you can see that grades 4 and 5 have already achieved that 90% and above. And you can see our grades K3, they've made improvement, and they're on track to hopefully make that goal at the end of the school year, which I think is what it's all about. And looking at the MTSS and seeing that it has been working. Then the last.
I was gonna say Julie's in now. Sorry, I brought her
In
in.
now? I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate a little bit. I'm just kind of moving a little bit quickly through the goals. Anything, Julie, you'd like to add with the 90% of students at or above grade level for reading?
No, thank you. We've had the goal of 90% for a few years now, but our measures have changed. And so what you see, the K-3 number for this year, starting in September at 55% and moving to 63.5. K-3 is on a system called M-Class, which allows it to do, those are probably the most accurate numbers that we have. Because the M-Class system allows us to, it creates a composite score, which is a mix of a lot of different subtests. We don't have 4th and 5th graders on that same system, so those are hand calculations. And so, yes, there was an increase, but I guess I would just say that we are trending in the right direction, but we are looking to continue to make improvements. But that K-3 number, I feel that's a very accurate number composed of lots of different subtests, not just one, whereas the 4th and 5th grade number is just one subtest.
And we know that's a January number right now. We are almost through March, and we'll see where we land the year. Very optimistic. And again, the ST Math, which is a supplemental program, that has demonstrated an increase in our MCAS scores. Excuse me. I've seen it in action, and it's really awesome to see how the students are excited about learning, and really seeing how they're competitive, and really looking at the 90% progress by June 24. And as of March 4th, the district average for completion was 75, and I know that's higher in some spots, and I know some students have already exceeded the 100% mark. So I always ask them, what do you do now? And they kind of laugh, but they go through and they're even pushed further. So I think this is all great news, and we're in MCAS time now, so we'll see how this work is paid off. Anything else, Julie, on this? Pretty cut and dry. All right, great. Committee, anything now? Because I'm going to move on to the middle school.
One quick question. Why don't we have the 4th and 5th graders on that same evaluative program, Julie?
We are grant funded to have that program, and the grant was written for K-3 students. It is in the budget for next year to extend it. We have the grant through next year for K-3. We did put it in the budget for 4th and 5th grade for next year because it would be nice to have K through 5 on one system, and the system allows you to do a lot more calculations and provides a lot more, we'd be able to do a lot more tracking, especially in 4th and 5th grade, that we aren't able to do by hand.
Okay, great. Thanks. So next year. Thank you.
All right, we are off to Holton Richmond, the mid-year goal. The 3 goals, so the safe and supportive learning environments, and Principal Colantoni and his team, they've done an outstanding job this year, really improving expectations, accountability, and you see it if you visit there, which I have many times. But the piece that's really important is that, you know, they're working on the community circles, the monthly grade meetings, the Hawk Talks, the Hawks High Fives, which are fantastic because it does recognize our students in areas of growth and citizenship, effort, and excellence. The trusted adult data and relationship mapping, but also that late bus, which is really a game changer, allowing more students to stay after school for extracurriculars, which is something that I heard as staff really, really wanted, and we were able to put that together this year. So all in all, the school is definitely making a lot of progress in that area. In terms of the next goal, which is the reading comprehension scores using iReady diagnostics, you can see, quite frankly, the goal's already been accomplished, you know, where they met 10% more students will test in the mid or above grade level or early on grade level categories than do so in the fall 23 assessment. So they've already moved the target there, which is fantastic. And as we get into the MCAS season, which for now we'll look to see where that translates to that particular set of scores. But the iReady has been it's going and it's working well. I know Ellen and Adam are both on the call. Is there anything you'd like to add in this particular update on this goal?
No, Ellen, are you on the call?
Yes. I think, you know, we're thrilled with the progress. We really, when we're setting goals like this, we always debate, you know, how high to set the target. So I think we undershot the goal, to be honest, seeing how well we've done in exceeding it at this point. So we're just looking forward to see what our spring data looks like. So we have a better sense how to calibrate kind of how much or how much growth rather to expect within a year.
I think it'd be interesting too to talk with Julie to compare those dibbles, like kind of how dibbles assess students in the 5th grade versus when we do iReady in the 6th grade. Just, you know, kind of compare and contrast those numbers.
And then the last goal is you know, working collaboratively to implement culture responsive teaching practices to see an increase in culture responsive teaching practice school-wide. Certainly a lot of time has been spent on reestablishing and establishing routines and operations. So this is a goal that there's definitely more room here, and I appreciate Adam and Ellen working hard to move, but this is the next piece to continue with. Anything you want to add here, Adam or Ellen?
No, I think you summed that up pretty accurately. Our focus really has been just kind of resetting a lot at the school and getting everyone into really good routines and habits, and we feel like we're getting there. So it's kind of on to the next steps for us.
School committee, any questions for the middle school?
Just one thing. So for the iReady, I know we've already like reached our 10%, which is amazing. I just think it's still worth noting that that means we have 55% of our kids are not at, well, there would be 2 grade levels or below, right? I think if I was reading it correctly. I just
Yeah,
have
I
to go
think,
back.
yeah.
Okay, or one below. So sorry. So 55% of our kids are below grade, or at least one grade belt level below. So just like thinking about that, I mean, because as those kids get moved along, and I know part of it was like the foundational years they were in school. I know part of it was balanced literacy. Now we're doing science of reading. So there was like a bunch of different factors, but just thinking about like, you know, and I know you said that, you know, working on interventions and stuff like that, which is awesome because, you know, we don't want those kids to continue to fall behind. But as far as the last goal, Dan, that you had just quickly brought upon, like I have to say, like the feedback I've gotten about the routines and the operations and just the overall climate so far with the leadership this year is awesome. So thank you for all the work with that too, because that obviously, once we have more of that, we see more learning also with students. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robin.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Adam and Ellen. We're going to move on to the high school. I know we have Mr. Federico is on the call. And Mr. Morrow, I believe, is on the call as well. So similarly to each of the schools, the safe and supportive learning environment, that has to be first and foremost. And I've seen this in operation as well in terms of the community block. The program is extensive, and they did have, I think their dodgeball was today. I've seen the kindness. I've participated in a few of the other activities. There's quite a buzz around the school when these happen, and this goes a long way with building community, which is important. The assemblies I have attended, and certainly I know that Adam and his team are working really, really hard to improve the school culture and climate, and kudos to his team for doing so. In terms of the MTSS and more of a foundation and executive functioning, the 13 executive functioning lessons have been implemented. And I think the other piece too is the additional academic support that they are offering in grade 10 with the WIN block is outstanding, the What I Need block. Continuing working with the study group with MTSS and the ongoing data the leadership team is working on to really dive deeply into the data and how can we work to improve supports for students so our achievement can increase. Adam and Peter, I know you're on the call. Is there anything you'd like to add with the goals here?
First I just want to recognize that, goal one has really just been a team effort at Danvers High School. And I want to, just a couple of people, Christina Aste has taken over as the community block director this year, and she's really done an outstanding job at integrating that into our day. And I think that, if you kind of turn the tape back to 3 years ago and to where we are now, I just feel like I'm so proud of the way the school has built a culture that's just positive, and kids and staff are really finding joy in being at school. And then the other thing that I just want to point out is in goal 2 under Mr. DeMoro's leadership, and he can speak a little more about this, but the executive functioning lessons, I think have just been really so impactful for our grade 10 students. If you think about some of those skills that are going to, transcend no matter what you're doing, I think taking the time to really emphasize these skills and make sure kids know how to send a professional email, know how to organize their day, know how to use Google Drive and Classroom to its fullest extent, I think has really paid off. And that's something we've heard from parents that they want. So we were excited to deliver on that.
Just to elaborate a little further on that, we're in year 2 of those executive functioning lessons. So our team, I feel like, is a well-oiled machine. We're refining and auditing what we have and how we can improve it. Another partnership that has been really helpful is the community leaders that lead community meeting and community block have partnered with us to facilitate some of those lessons. So they've been really integral in giving us the student perspective as to how they would receive the lesson and what would be helpful to them when they would have been a freshman. So that's been amazing as well. And then just to hit a little bit on the data leadership team meetings, our focus this year has been all around formative assessment and local data. And so I think those meetings have been really productive for teachers in each of the professional learning communities to identify what data they're collecting and really being able to reflect on what students need to grow further as they move through the year.
And certainly the last goal, which is critical too, it's a culmination of all the work through elementary to middle, they're at high school, but just looking to see, when they leave the doors to ensure they have postgraduate success and access to quality post-secondary options and to be civically engaged members of our community. And you've seen examples of that throughout that have been here on school committee presenting, but the early college program and continue to add new cohorts, the leadership opportunities, the strength and internship base, which is outstanding, the capstone presentation, and certainly the work that's being done in the pathways, which is outstanding in terms of looking at the 1-8 Foundation and the work that's being done there to really strengthen and project lead the way. So Peter and Adam, if you have anything to add on this, because this is critical, really, when you talk about what separates Danvers from other schools and options, this is an ability to provide a lot of opportunities for our students when they come to that end of their school career.
I just want to take a minute and recognize the first early college cohort that's going to graduate this year. you know, looking back at those kiddos from where they started to where they're going to finish, it's just amazing to see the growth. And these are often students who come from, they're the first child in their family to go to college, or they come from a, you know, a background with some adversity in it. And I just, when you see them come back into the building and talk with them, the confidence, the just what they've learned, being on a college campus, you know, it's immeasurable. And so we're really proud of that group. They're gonna have special recognition at graduation. And I want to recognize James Sullivan, one of our guidance counselors who oversees that, and also Mary Wormers, who's really been a driving force as well behind that program. So that was one thing I really felt was important to highlight tonight.
Great. All right, so this is it, Madam Chair, in terms of the three. I did have other updates, which we're going to bypass for our next meeting just to expedite this. We have other topics tonight, but I am so proud of our administrative team. We're making progress. We still have work to do, no question about that. And we're working hard, our kiddos and our staff, and it is truly a collaborative effort. So I don't know if there's any questions or comments before we move on to the next part of our meeting. And we have our team members here if they want to. If any questions directed to them.
Yeah, I just want to thank the principals and curriculum directors because we've asked you a lot from you this year, and you've come to a lot of meetings and explained things. And I know it's been a lot of late nights and a lot of time. So thank you, because I think we might have seen you more this year than we've ever seen you, and that's been great. But it's also been a lot of work on your end. So thank you. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the committee. Okay, well, thank you for the update.
I'm going to bypass. I had a few other things that I'll bring forward, but we did want to touch on some quick general curriculum updates, just to touch base because some topics that have come up, just to bring more information to the community. So I know in terms of the elementary, Julie's on with Mary. Just a couple of quick things in terms of the elementary curriculum. Julie and Mary.
Sure, thank you. So just a quick reminder about where we started, shifting from balanced literacy to structured literacy and thinking about those two components of reading. So as you know, we are in our first year of implementation of 95% core phonics, kindergarten through 5th grade. And again, that's explicit systematic phonics instruction. And that's really been the basis of our tier 1 instruction for word recognition, and also utilizing phonics lesson library for our tier 2 instruction in that area. In addition, we've been on the search for a component that would allow for that regular practice with complex texts and academic language, knowing that we need to be building that background knowledge and vocabulary and oral language along with that word recognition and the ability to actually decode the words in order to have strong reading comprehension. We are moving forward with Fish Tank ELA as that curriculum where it will allow students to have regular practice with complex texts and academic language. And where we stand now, Mr. Bauer, can you switch to the next slide, please? Where we are now, we've already reviewed our data, where we are in terms of our DIBELS data. All of our K-5 students participate in an MTSS block for literacy 4 times a week. This instruction, oh, Mr. Bauer, can you go back one, please? Sorry. Oh, and forward one. Oh, okay, perfect. This instruction is an opportunity 4 times a week for that differentiated instruction, both intervention or extension for all of our learners. We use, again, we've talked about the literacy screener was shared with all families in October and again in February. For the middle of the year data, we're using 95% core phonics for both tier 1 and tier 2 instruction, and teachers are piloting different fish tank units. And where are we headed? One more forward. So we are continuing to enhance our MTSS model, thinking about what refinements we want to make for next year. The same goes for our implementation of 95% core phonics. Again, the feedback around 95% in general has been very positive, but as we know, doing things the second year in is always a stronger option, and thinking about what we want to change and how much time we need in the schedule and all those pieces. In terms of the language comprehension portion of the simple view of reading, we're continuing to receive feedback from staff who are piloting different fish tank units. And we're working on developing a scope and sequence for those units that best supports regular practice with that complex text and academic language for school year 24-25. We're working on that with teachers. We're going to be working on that next week at April early release. And we look forward to sharing more details of our plan as we have them.
All right. Any questions for elementary curriculum updates?
I just want to make sure that with Fish Tank, that for because it's literacy, we're not double dipping with science and social studies, because I know we don't get a lot of that at the elementary. So because it's a literacy curriculum, it is not replacing science and social studies, correct?
That is absolutely correct. So in our plans for our schedule for next school year, we will have that literacy block, but in addition, we'll have a science social studies block.
Awesome. Thank you.
Done. All right.
So you can go on.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. And now we're on to the Holton Richmond. We have Ellen and Adam just to give a quick update. Floor is yours.
So in language arts, we are continuing our process of a new curriculum adoption. So we've narrowed down to 2 programs that will be field testing. One is Open Up Resources EL. Some of our teachers have actually already started their field testing of EL this past week. And then later on in the spring, we will be field testing into literature. So we're really excited. So we're doing data collection around those 2 programs, and then we'll make a decision about at the end of the year for which program we want to implement next year. In math, we recently had a week of professional development with our Carnegie Learning Coach, and she spent the week with us focusing on collaborative instructional strategies. She was in classrooms modeling, observing, and also doing some direct instruction with teachers on the on the early release day. This is kind of more holistic than just curriculum, but we've been implementing some student shadowing. So staff members have been taking turns actually shadowing students from start to finish of the day to really see the whole kind of school experience through a student's eyes. And then we plan to gather those teachers together, collect data about their experiences, and they're going to be sharing out with the faculty what they learned at the April early release. And then finally, we wanted to just update you as to our exploratory cycle design, which is undergoing some changes. So in the past, kind of because we had some of these sort of singleton courses that weren't part of a more kind of holistic program, it would be kind of up to chance in terms of what courses in the exploratory rotation students might get. So one student might have a particular exploratory that maybe their neighbor, their friend never had an opportunity to have just by nature of the exploratory experience. So we're looking to create a predictable rotation of courses for students so that students know, okay, if I have art this trimester, I know that means I'll have music the following trimester and health the trimester after that. So we want it to be a really predictable cycle for kids and a more equitable experience for students. And also we're aligning our course sequences with the Danvers High pathways so that this year we weren't able to hire a computer education teacher. We just didn't find a suitable candidate. So it's really a priority to have that position staffed this year. And so that can feed students into one of the pathways that they would be experiencing at Danvers High.
I am muted, so there we go. Any questions for Holton Richmond? I think the last point that Ellen brought up is critical, as we say that we need to vertically align the high school to the middle school, so students are prepared, particularly in the pathways area. That is an awesome opportunity at the high school, but that work really can begin at the middle school, and certainly will help, as it was brought up earlier, in terms of options when students have moving from 8th to 9th. To stay in that pathway and take advantage of the programming we have. So I don't know if there's any questions for Adam or Ellen at this time.
I have a question I'm sorry, go ahead, Josh.
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, my question was really to do with the student shadowing. in terms of the mechanics of it? Is a staff member following a particular student through their day? Does the student know? Is hopefully the student, no one else would know a particular student is being shadowed, I'm going to assume.
Well, actually, we were really transparent about the whole thing. So the first step was that staff who were interested in shadowing a student gave us some information about what exactly they were hoping to learn. So some students, for example, or some teachers rather, wanted to really learn about the experience of a special education student. Some wanted to see kind of just a typical student. Some were really interested in the experience of our multilingual learners. So based on that, and what grade level they taught and what grade level they were hoping to shadow, I kind of matched them with a student. I then got that student's family's permission for the student to participate. And then in some cases, the student and teacher already knew each other. In some cases, they didn't, and they met one another a day or two before so that they were kind of familiar with one another. And nobody actually rode the bus with their student, unfortunately. We did offer that. And so none of our teachers did have the full student experience, but basically from the time the student walked in the door in the morning until they left that afternoon, they were together. They dressed like a student, they participated in classes, they played badminton and PE and took the assessments, and one teacher was in the opportunity room with the student they were shadowing, so they really got the full experience.
So students who are not being shadowed, are they aware of the program? Is it going to be like obvious to them? Oh, Billy's being shadowed today by Mr. So-and-so.
It was pretty obvious, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in their homeroom, the homeroom teacher, I think it was kind of announced in the homeroom, but it's an actual initiative online, Shadow a Student Day, with the idea that we try to build empathy of the student school day of things that we may not even think of. I did a few times as a principal years ago, and it really helped us make some small but important shifts in kind of our day-to-day operations through seeing the lens of a student. So we're excited to get the summary findings from our teachers. They've already shared some interesting things.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I thank you for answering questions about how you've implemented it. Thank you.
Yeah, Dan, I just wanted to add quickly too about the exploratory. I just wanted to just ensure that we still offer really robust options for students, particularly in the arts and performing arts. I mean, students are able to take a full year jazz band, chorus. This week, there's all year art opportunities for students to learn about in the 6th and 7th grade for next year. If they're interested in taking art all year as an exploratory, that's on top of art as a trimester class, general music as a trimester class. Want to work with Drew around really aligning our health curriculum, middle school and high school. PE is a full year class. I mean, from my experience, we offer a really robust range of experiences for students, and we truly want it to be exploratory for students. And what our discovery was this year was just through no one's fault, just students really weren't being guaranteed a true exploratory experience where they might be taking both STEM classes the same trimester. And it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we're just trying to be really thoughtful, particularly for our incoming families, to give them some transparent pathways of what it will look like for your child as they go through 6th through 8th grade.
Right.
Josh, you had a question, right? Or comment? Oh, I thought you
I
did.
didn't,
Okay.
but I could think of something if you want, but.
Oh, no, I thought you did before because it's hard to see
No.
everyone's. Okay. So, all
That's
right.
okay.
So I
I'm
think,
good.
all right, we're ready then. The next. So thank you, Adam and
Okay.
Helen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And really just quickly, I wanted Drew Betts to come back on. I know he's getting a lot out of him tonight, but just a quick update in terms of the health and wellness frameworks. Drew, are you on?
Yep, I'm here. So this has kind of been beneficial. I've been able to attend a couple different workshops from DESE in terms of like how different districts are starting to implement some of the changes. And so that's something that's kind of very much an ongoing process. And then some feedback that we got from the wellness committee earlier this week was just some of the education that's going on at the elementary level. to just happen a little bit earlier in the school year versus kind of the traditional window, which what they're introducing is in the spring. And then I've also had an opportunity to, and Robin, you would know me well, had a couple chances to meet with other athletic directors who are involved with health and wellness around our area, just to kind of see, what's been working well and how have you made an adjustment, or what adjustments are you looking to make. So that process is still very much undergoing, but it's been a very exciting year and trying to learn as much as I can.
Great. And I think the point is, the health and frameworks, there've been adjustments that it came out, but really based on what I've learned, the work that's happening here, there won't be too many adjustments for next year moving forward. It's still a process of reviewing and such, because the frameworks are generally basically the same. And there's obviously what they're doing at the high school and middle school, is outstanding working on that. But anything you want to add on that piece?
No, I mean, I think kind of like Adam had touched on, it's like, I think as, making sure that we're sort of working together, and I think, Jeff and Jess do an outstanding job at the middle school, and then here at the high school as well. It's like trying to figure out how we can get as much out of the windows of time that the students have with our health teachers. So it's something that, like I said, I think it's just continuing to figure out how can we get as much as we possibly can in a sort of a short window of time, and prioritizing or determining what to prioritize as much as possible.
Awesome. Right. Any further questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Betts.
Okay. So Superintendent Bauer, I'm looking still at the agenda and we still have a lot. Is there anything could we push the monthly budget report to next month? Or I don't know if Pam's already on.
I believe
Pam is in attendee. She's an attendee. I can bring her forward for the.
Okay, yeah.
The
So would you like to move the calendar to the next meeting, Madam Chair?
Well, yeah, I'm wondering if we have anything more information we might have on that.
Not at this point from, obviously, we're in negotiations, so that piece is happening, but nothing new on the calendar. I can report that the town did come back and there's no conflicts in terms of next year, if this is the calendar moving forward, as well as the DPW. Remember, we had that little glitch before the December break. That's not the case with this calendar.
Okay, then do we want a motion then to for now? I mean, we know that there can always be an amendment to it too, but then a motion for a second reading for the 2024-2025 school calendar.
Motion for the second meeting for the 2024-25 school calendar.
Second.
Okay, so Janet, we need a roll call, please.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
No.
Gabe Lopes,
Yes.
Okay. So thank you. And Pam, up for the monthly budget report.
Yeah, I mean, I presented you with the report through the month of February. And it really is following the same similar pattern to what we've seen from previous budget reports, with particular stressors identified as our special education, transportation, and tuitions. But that is more or less where it has been, in the red but stable the last few months. So it is still our hope and intention to be able to adequately cover that through whether it's savings in other lines in our operating budget, or as needed from circuit breaker reserve. I mean, the only other thing that is really of note is also on the transportation front, which is that we've struggled a little bit more this year than past years with having vehicles available to use to provide our own transportation. Have had to contract out for more things. And so good news on that front is that we are beginning to come back from some of those deficits, I guess you would say, in our resources. An additional van being used for some special trips that our students are taking on. And also the purchase of a new bus that will help support the fleet with a spare, I guess you'd say, when there's an issue. So turning a corner on some struggles that we've had, but
Can I ask a couple of questions, Madam Chair?
Yeah.
In terms of the transportation, homeless transportation, if I read the budget right, we're down just about $250,000. And now the McKinney-Vento those rules ought to provide, say, half reimbursement from the other districts. So the remaining, say, 125 will cover by moving other expenditures, not spending things that we were going to. Is that correct?
well, that's actually sort of a unique situation this year. Some of the expenditures on that line are for the new students that we have in our district that some of them are being transported back to the sending district where they originated from.
Right.
And we found out in the last week or week and a half, at least it was news to me, that there was going to be a separate funding mechanism to reimburse the district for, I think, many, if not all of those expenses, separate from the other funding that we've already known about for the new students. So we are in the process of filling out the claim form, essentially, that will be submitted to the state, listing all of those expenses.
Excellent.
I haven't seen, I know I think it's due sometime in April. I think it's for December through March.
Okay.
That they give a first round of reimbursements, and then there'll be a second wave for April through June.
Good. So that sounds like that problem is more or less solved.
Yes.
Looking at the special education budget as well as special education transportation, we're just under, it looks like $1 million in the red on that. And
It's about 950,000, yep.
yeah, so our general plan to resolve that, are we working with the town to access the special education reserve? How are we tentatively planning to attack that?
We have not yet explored accessing the special education reserve fund. That is there with $750,000. Our intention was to hold that for next year for anything that's unanticipated because of some of the mechanisms for closing our budget deficit for FY25 spending. So, you know, we're being cautious in our spending on the other lines when it comes to making purchases for whether it's material purchases or contracted services and that kind of thing. We also do have some remaining flexibility with the balance that we have in our ESSER grant funding, so that if need be, we could shift some ESSER eligible expenses to ESSER and use the funds that get freed up to help with the some of these tuition and transportation challenges.
Okay. So it's your thought right now that we'll be able to do this sort of within the budget, this $960,000?
That is the intention, yes, at this time.
Okay. All right, just if you would keep us advised on how that's progressing.
Sure, yes, I'd be happy to.
Thanks, Pam. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Pam, and thank you. I know you've done a lot of work recently with the budget, so thank you very much for all of that work too and your continued work. So thank you. Have a nice night. Thank you.
All right, the last piece, Madam Chair, is very important for tonight. I know it's been a lengthy meeting, but this one is time sensitive with the Opportunity Act plan, which we have to submit. We need approval from the school committee to submit by April 1. So Mary Wormers has put together, run through the presentation. Mary, you available?
Yes, I am. And I'm presenting tonight our approach to our Student Opportunity Act plan. So for those of you that don't know, the Student Opportunity Act was established in Massachusetts a few years ago, and it was to inject funding into communities, especially those communities supporting students with the greatest needs. So part of that legislation that came through requires that every 3 years the districts need to submit plans. So we are submitting one on April 1st, and part of that plan needs to address disparities in learning experiences and outcomes for student groups that are the least well served. And then also part of that grant is that we need to use evidence-based practices to make sure that we are improving their achievement. So next slide, sorry. So the plan is just to give you a little context, the plan is a subset of our work, is what they say on the slide. We have the bit larger district improvement plan in Danvers that we were kind of working on, and you heard so many of the mid-year accomplishments around that plan. But our SOA plan really we had to do a deep analysis of data, and especially our disaggregate data, to come down to find out student groups that are not being served well or have a disparity compared to all the kids. And then pick a focal area and some evidence-based practices that are going to help us, the students in those subgroups, achieve. So if you go to the next slide. And also to help with those evidence-based practices, one of the resources that the Department of Ed gave us is their new educational vision. And it's kind of providing like a North Star for school districts to kind of think about where they're going with their work in the school district. And it was great to read this because a lot of the work we are doing in Danvers aligns with the Department of Ed's educational vision. So it helps us, confirm that we're on the right track. But I put a red blocks around individual supports enable students to excel at grade level. And I did that because our approach to this plan is to shore up our multi-tier system of support. And I'll talk more about that as we move along in the slideshow. So I think the next part is the first, I'm giving you the first, they have different parts of the plan. The first one is I have to make a summary of our plan. So basically, as we analyzed our data, we found that our three of the subgroups that have a large disparity with all students are students with disabilities, our English learners, and our low-income students. And so our strategy is to build and strengthen our district's multi-tier system of support. And we're doing that with 2 evidence-based practices. We're going to use the effective student support system, and we're going to also use the evidence-based practice of comprehensive tiered support. And really the difference between the two is that the first one, effective student support system, is really taking our academic system and looking at, I feel like the work we need to do is really shore up tier 2 and tier 3. We need to strengthen our interventions and our extensions that we provide students in our multi-tier system of support. So we need to take a good look there and put resources in those tiers in tier 2 and tier 3. And then the second bullet, the comprehensive tiered support, is really getting us to start to build, because we have a loose structure for social, emotional, and behavior and mental health, but we need to really formalize those structures. So we have to build a stronger framework for behavior, social, emotional learning, and mental health. So we have the tier of the academic that's pretty strong, but we need to really start to build that in the social, emotional, behavior, and mental health. So those are our 2 goals that we're working on for the next 3 years. And we feel like those, by strengthening those, we're going to strengthen the experience for our students in our identified subgroups. So the second part asks us what data we use to inform the plan. So we've been looking at disaggregate data. We look at it through MCAS, which we've presented in subgroups and presented to the school committee. We're looking at our access data, which is the English language acquisition assessment data that we get for our ELs and how well they're progressing towards their targets of meeting English proficiency. We look at our accountability data that takes lots of different measures for the district and gives us an accountability rating. And that gives us lots of great subgroup data. So we looked at that. We have attendance data, the chronically absent students, students that are absent a lot are not achieving well in school because they're not in school enough. So we looked at the attendance data. We looked at behavior data. Look at behavior data and discipline data with the assistant principals on a monthly basis. We reviewed our mid-year data. We also did it for the school year, last school year. And then finally, with you, we presented our vocal data, because we use the perceptions of kids and how they're feeling, and whether they feel they belong, how they feel in their environment, how they feel on school safety, and how they feel in their engagement in school. And we kind of use that perception data to help drive some of our initiatives. Again, we disaggregated all levels of all of that data. And then after our data analysis, we found that we had the disparities in the following groups: students with disabilities, low-income students, Hispanic students, and English language learners. So third component of the plan is that we engage stakeholders and we ask them to get feedback on the work we're doing and the progress we're making. So we did some focus groups and did some surveys to get feedback on how we're doing with the multi-tier system of support, since we already have that in place. And so we're getting feedback on that, how to make it stronger. So we got feedback from focus groups of teachers and staff, as well as a little survey. Families, we had a focus group of families at the elementary level around on the MTSS. The CPAC group, we talked to them, we gave them a survey. Administrators, because we're leading the work of that. Families of English language learners, most notably our emergency assistance families, and then community and educational partners that we have that help us out in our school district. So we're also committing to surveying the stakeholder groups. I can't talk tonight. And we're going to keep those groups informed on our progress and how we're growing and implementing our new MTSS in academic, social, emotional, and behavioral development. Next slide. So, so part of that plan is that we have to pick a focal area that we're going to work on. They have a menu of areas that you can pick from. And so because we are, at the beginning stages of the multi-tier system of support, we picked our focus area 1.2, which is implement a multi-tier system of supports that helps all students progress both academically and in their social, emotional, and behavioral development. And then I described to you what we were doing. We picked two of them, effective student support systems. And so that's, really shoring up that tier 2 and tier 3, and then the comprehensive tiered supports for the behavior, social, emotional, and mental health, building that full framework. So next slide. So as we go on the effective support system, that's the academic system that we're looking at. And we're really working to, again, strengthen those tiers. And we thought that, our approach is to, have a better use of data systems and what we call decision rules for needing supports, working on strengthening them and being clear about what the decision rules are for those supports. Use effective strategies for matching students with the appropriate supports, stronger at progress monitoring each student more frequently, hire more professionals to support the intervention and extension groups, because the more people, the more you can flood the block, as Julie always says, the better supports you give to students. Provide stronger, this came through a lot in our focus groups, providing better professional development for teachers around the interventions and extensions, especially, and teachers, specialized teachers and tutors would be important there, and then purchase intervention materials. And then finally, on our comprehensive tiered support, we are working on starting from the beginning and really building up those, the 3 tiers across the social, emotional, and behavioral and mental health supports, and really kind of doing a resource kind of assessment where we are, and then start building that work together. Because we do have like the part in behaviors and the SEL, we have parts of it, and it's just making it a system. So it's taking the pieces and shoring those pieces up and making it a system. So that's our SOA plan.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Does anyone have any questions? So it's something we do every 3 years that we have to submit.
And they are, our group that they are going to monitor our effectiveness for implementation is our lowest performing students. So regardless of your school district, every district is getting monitored on their lowest performing student groups. So DESE, I think at the end of last month, the beginning of this month, they released the lowest performing students groups, and we're going to be going through that with our administrators so they're aware of who that group of kids is.
So this is due to the state April 1st, did you
Yep.
say?
Mm-hmm.
So you need a vote from us tonight to.
Yeah, on our approach to this plan.
Yeah, the superintendent is recommending it, correct?
I'll
Yep.
move, we approve the plan.
Need a second?
Second.
All right, Janet, can you do a roll call, please?
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Joshua Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Thank you, Mary, for the hard work. We look forward to
Yeah.
updates about it and how's it going and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
We actually started a MTSS development team. So we're just started in that work. So it's began this month and we meet on Thursday again. So it's good. A good group of people. I'm excited.
Thank you. So in interest of time, we're going to wait for the order of business till the April 8th meeting because I know we still have an executive session. So if that is okay with everyone else, we need a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, which we will then to go into executive session and we will not return to the regular meeting.
Motion to oh, there you go.
Go for it, Alice.
Motion to adjourn regular session.
Second.
Janet, please. Oh, and to go, yeah, sorry, Janet,
Yeah, I'm going to
please.
move that we also agree to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing bargaining with collective bargaining units and not to return to regular session.
Second.
Okay.
Robin Doherty,
Yes.
Alice Campbell,
Yes.
Eric Crane,
Yes.
Josh Kepnes,
Yes.
Gabe Lopes.
Yes.
Okay, good night, Danvers. Thank you. The next meeting will be April 8th in person at Holton Richmond at 6:30. Thank you.